We're live.
Yay.
Did you see? We are live for episode 70. Good evening, everyone. Episode 70 is on the move. We're back with our second spouse.
Nice.
So Dan was episode 50, I think.
Yep.
So we're joined by his lovely wife, who outranks him, right? Or
actually,
I just heard. I know he got lucky.
He just got promoted. Yeah, but I still time and grade.
Yeah, that's right. So
absolutely.
We'll say you outrank him in the military and also
at home. Of course.
So, but we're joined by Master Sergeant retired Jennifer Skunza.
Yes.
Jen,
Jen. Yep, Jen.
With one N.
One N.
How do you decipher between the one or two N's? How does that work?
I just have always done one N, and I think people that use two are just super weird. Should just be like when they spell Jennifer with one N and two F's. That's not.
I've never seen that one.
Oh, I have. It bugs the crap out of me.
I've seen the Jen with the two N's for the short note, but
yeah,
we're going Jen. We got that right. We put Jennifer up on the screen, but we'll be okay. Yeah. But we'll start off with a quote, and this kind of ties into your story. Really unique. I'm looking forward to talk about it. You know, being a mom, a soldier, a dual spouse, a lot to talk about. So the first quote is actually from Captain Charlotte Andrews. It says, "Being a military mom is about being strong, flexible, loving, caring, and supportive. It's about showing my children how to help when families are in need, expecting the unexpected and making the most of it, staying positive and showing your children how to be happy, confident, and strong in the face of adversity."
I like it. Nice.
I try to find a quote from you. I mean, that's
a great quote.
It's a good article. I mean, and I've always been, it's my time in the military. I've always, and even on the podcast, I've talked a lot about how amazing it is to, how much support we get at home, but then you get the complexity of dual military.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm really excited to talk about it, a different perspective being a woman, going through it as well. So, let's start about you. It's time for you to talk. I mean, you loosen up a little bit. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right. So I retired August 1st. Best decision of my life. Aside from marrying my husband, of course.
Did he pay you to say that, or?
No, but he will.
Okay. But,
so grew up in Amelia, Ohio, which is kind of southeast of Cincinnati, very small town, and went to Amelia High School, played volleyball, basketball, track, National Honor Society, Student Council. I peaked in high school.
You were doing it all.
Yeah, I was doing it all. And then I got to college and just bombed.
So back to growing up, four siblings?
Yes. Actually, only three. Marie died when she was less than 2 months old. She was the oldest. And then the second child, Susan, which she was a year older than me, she passed away from cystic fibrosis in 2000. So now there's just three of us.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
So it was like growing up with them, siblings.
Yeah, she was terminally ill. My parents never hid that from us. She did great until about high school as far as being sick and stuff. And then she was in the hospital a lot and all that kind of stuff. So back then, I think the average age for people with CF was like 20. And now you have people living full lives. So I'm really glad to see that they've improved on that. But and then my brother is 2 years younger than me. And he's actually retired Air National Guard. So I should get him on this podcast for you. But yeah, he's doing great. And my sister is 8 years younger than me. She was the oops of the family. And she actually works for the VA down in Kentucky as a respiratory therapist. So
nice.
Yeah. So we've all done well.
So growing up, who are you closest with growing up?
My sister, Susan.
The younger one, huh?
No, the older one. The older one.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Julie and I didn't really, my youngest sister, due to the age difference, probably didn't really start bonding until we became adults and, started having children. And, the age difference wasn't quite so much because, you're adults and kind of on the same level, I guess.
Yeah, because my sister's 8 years younger, so it's the same way. I feel the same way when you're more like another parent when you're the older one.
Yeah, I mean, we spoiled her rotten, and she was like, a little toy for us. And
then my dad was like disappear for months on end, so I was pretty much raising my sister on his own. That's a lie. I was just trying to see if he was paying attention.
I remember that my mom was still using cloth diapers with the pin, and we would change her diaper a lot. And so scared that we would like jab it into her and stuff.
I'm glad that those were gone away when I had kids. That seems like such a
Yeah. And I mean, I was like 8 and changing diapers and trying not to like stick it in her.
So having your sister being sick, what, like you said, your parents didn't hide that from you. I mean, obviously that was affecting the family. What was that like, growing up having, that kind of, hanging over everybody's head or
it was hard. So my parents are actually now divorced. They divorced after 32 years of marriage. From what my dad's sisters say, they never dealt with the death of their first child, and their second child was born with a terminal illness. They were told not to have more kids because CF it's genetic, so any of us could have had it. So they, obviously went on to have more kids, but they fought a lot. I don't think that they ever dealt with what they needed to deal with. So they fought a lot, which, kind of affected us a lot. But we had a good childhood. We didn't want for anything. We grew up on a farm. We, bred cattle and pigs and did 4-H and all that kind of stuff. So, and my sister played sports until she couldn't. They did everything to, have her life as normal as possible. So, it is what it is, but we still had a good childhood.
Yeah, so do you think like all the stuff you were doing, was that kind of a way for you to get away from what was going on, or was just what you wanted to do, being active and everything?
No, I think I kind of wanted to get away from stuff. I'll say I've probably not dealt with her death as well as I probably should have, as far as, getting treatment for it and stuff. But yeah, she actually passed away when I was in AIT. So I missed her passing by an hour. They couldn't fly me out until the next morning. When I got there, she had passed an hour before. So that was rough. And then the day of her funeral, I had to fly back to AIT because if I missed another day, I was going to be recycled. So, just power through it.
Yeah. So that happened.
Yeah. It makes you who you are.
Yeah.
So,
but just whenever you hear that though, you just think like the military, if you like, what would one more day,
yeah.
what and all the wasting that was going on, you just show up one day later, it probably would have been okay. Not to be here on that day or recycle the whole complete thing. It's kind of like, okay.
Well, it was kind of crazy because I found out the day before my parents did a Red Cross message, and bottom line is the drill sergeants didn't do what they should have done. Mm-hmm. So they didn't fly me out until the next day. My company commander, a captain who, you're in basic training, so they're like gods. Mm-hmm. If they're an officer and a company commander, she actually brought me into the office so I could say goodbye to my sister on the phone, and then found out the drill sergeant that kind of kept me from getting home on time got reprimanded pretty good for that. Yeah. So yeah, but
we jumped ahead there, but you mind going back a little more?
Yeah, absolutely.
So growing up, anybody else in the military that you knew of?
Yeah. So my grandfather on my dad's side was a CB. My dad and my uncle Mike were both in the Navy about the same time. And my brother is Air National Guard. I had a cousin that was in for a minute, but kind of didn't
work out.
Didn't last very long. So, and then my grandmother, my dad's mom, was actually in the Women's Army Corps, which I find awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, she passed before I was born, so I never knew her, but I love hearing stories about her and, stuff like that. So
what made you decide you were doing all these things, playing sports, 4-H? What was it? What else?
Student Council, National Honor
the State
Society.
Queen of Beef. Ohio State Queen of Beef. That's one I think.
I was the Claremont County Beef Queen.
Okay, what is that? Like, what's the Beef Queen? I wasn't in 4-H.
So I was actually the first in my county. They started it, and I won.
Was the only participant and won that? No, I'm kidding.
There were 2.
Okay.
There were 2 of us.
Nobody needs to know that.
I think they all do now.
Yeah.
So essentially you have to be knowledgeable on beef. And then when they're showing cows at the fair, then you get your picture taken with them. You have your crown on and your sash, and you get your picture taken with the winners. And then I did a few appearances at some grocery stores. That was back when beef, it's what's for dinner was going on. So I would sit in a grocery store with a little table and promote beef. And
so
then,
what was it? I mean, what kind of knowledge of beef do we have here? We're talking like beef cuts. I mean, like what's I mean, because we have Nate, who we consider we might have to have a beef off, because he's like he's big on beef and meat. He knows all the cuts and everything. So like, I just imagine, like what kind of knowledge did you have to have?
the different cuts of beef, different breeds, just stuff like that. And then I went on because I won.
If she hasn't mentioned she won, she was not good.
I'm royalty. I have a crown and a sash.
Do you still have it?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Why didn't you just do you have the picture of you in this?
I do.
Why didn't you send that?
I almost did, but I didn't want to brag. I'm probably the first royalty you've had on this
the queen
podcast.
Your Majesty.
So, yeah, I didn't want
Your Majesty.
I didn't want to be too pretentious. So, but so I went to the state competition and got first runner up. Some stupid girl beat me. But if you were the state beef queen, or I think they call it queen of beef, it's basically the same concept but you're doing it statewide. So
this could have been your calling. I mean,
I told you I peaked in high school.
You could have been like you could have been on a commercial,
Yeah.
Where's the beef?
So yeah, I mean, I actually went to college for a minute I changed my major like every semester, which is why I never graduated. But at some point, my major was beef production. So, always have a place in my heart for beef. I'm
glad you said that, not me, but it's because I was going to say the same thing. But back to that. But you were doing well in high school, good grades. I mean, any thoughts in high school to go in the military, or was it just going to go to college first?
No, not at all. So, at a long-term high school boyfriend, we got engaged right after college, and then 3 months before the wedding, I called it off because I was like 20. And then I just jetted up to Ohio State just on my own to get away from everything. And I wasn't doing good there either. And just didn't know what I wanted to do, no focus, partying way too much. It was kind of the first time my parents were very strict growing up. So I was a very good girl in high school. And so.
That they know of?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Mom and Dad. So yeah, I went a little crazy in college and didn't focus on studies. And then my brother joined the Air National Guard, and I was like, oh, that's to pay for college. And I was like, oh, that's what I need. And I needed a break. I needed to get away. So talked to a recruiter. We didn't really click. Ended up contacting the Army and got put in the Army Reserve, and then had basically a 6-month break from being a college student. And then my sister died, and I got back and just couldn't do it. So
you're not the only person that we've talked to that went to school and to college and the wheels come off and you start to party. What was keeping you from studying? Just not knowing what you want to do? I mean, what was it? Just immaturity? What would you, if you look back on what?
Probably all of it. But I just didn't have, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I didn't have that driving force to go to class. And, I didn't have that goal to reach for because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So staying focused in college was it just wasn't working because I didn't have that drive.
Yeah, because to me, it was for me, it was high school. I was kind of like, I didn't really like it. And then went up to college, I was like, okay, this is I knew what I wanted to do. So I don't know if that was, and it was a military school. So it's like, you want to get out as quick as you can. But I don't know. I get it. Cause if I would have went to a normal school, I think I would have, I don't think I would have made it if I would have been able to have, cause my father was very strict. I'm just trying to get him to look at me. No, I grew up in a pretty strict home too. So it was like, if I would have been able to, I just kind of extend it into the military where they tell you what to do and you have to be places. And I kind of attribute it to getting through that. Because if I went to Ohio State, a big school, I don't know what it would have looked like. I was
I started off at the University of Cincinnati, but I was commuting there. I was still living at home. And again, just didn't know what I wanted to do and stuff. So, but I will say joining the military was great. I don't have a college education and did very well with it and was able to support the family and all that stuff. So, I started as a reservist, then I went active duty and eventually became AGR. But I mean, it was good in a lot of ways for the family. It has
Sure.
its hardships, but
So you became a preventive medicine specialist.
yes.
What made you pick that?
I did not. Well, kind of. I got very high scores on my ASVAB and stuff, and the guy at MEPS was like, "Oh, we don't see scores like this very often. Here's this MOS that's awesome," and I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just like, "Okay, yeah." But I ended up loving it. I did it for 8 years. It's basically public health. And I loved it. The only reason that I reclassed to civil affairs is because I was offered an AGR position, and I had to reclass to civil affairs to do that, which I love civil affairs too. So it was a good choice.
Right.
But yeah, I really liked public health. That was good.
See, we have it. The reason I know preventive med specialists is for one thing that we remember them very succinctly for is the water buffalo, making sure that the water buffaloes were clean and that you had potable water.
Yes.
These people would come down on you if it was. That's what I remember. I actually remember a preventive med officer who went off on our brigade sergeant major in front of like the whole brigade about water buffaloes and not being sand. And it was just,
yeah,
we were like, oh my gosh, she's not going to make it. And he actually gave her a coin and was just like, ma'am, don't do that in front of everybody else again. But yeah, but that's what that I know but it is public health, but that's a joke that a lot of times that's when we came in contact with,
yeah,
with making sure that
when
water, food, things were clean. It's a pretty important job.
Any non-combat injuries, anything that can cause a non-combat injury, we handled. So like in Iraq, we did air quality samples. We were those nerdy people like scooping up soil to get it tested. And we did dining facility inspections, which were kind of gross a lot of times, especially the field setups, and then water quality. And, we do some pesticide application, industrial like hearing and stuff like that. So I loved it. It was great. And one of the things about it is, as an E4, you walk into a dining facility or whatever, and they're following you and just, respecting everything that you say because you have the power to shut down that dining facility or whatever if it's not up to speed. And so that was kind of funny to me that, as like a specialist.
I have a question about that. You didn't go in with your sash and crown on when you did that either, did you?
No, they wouldn't let me.
Okay.
It was too out of uniform. Yeah.
They're like, look at me. No, yeah, that is true. I mean, because you're right. They, whenever they were around, you're nervous because they were looking to see something that. It's that mentality at the time that they're looking for something to get you in trouble, but it's mainly looking for something that could cause a lot of trouble. It's kind of a weird way to look at it.
Yeah. Right? Like we had a Burger King on base. This is not deployed. It was at Fort Carson, where the manager had his car engine in the back room working on it. We saw some wild stuff. And then in Iraq, every time we'd go through the chow hall line, they would give us they would dig around, give us the best cuts of meat and stuff because they knew who we were and that we were doing inspections. So it was a good MOS. I had fun with it.
Yeah, it is one of those things like everyone's terrified of you, but let's butter them up.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of like just some of the movies you've seen, and it might be sort of like when we were in Afghanistan, we thought we contaminated water supply, and we had to take a preventive med guy in there to get a sample, and it was just we were trying to distract him while he's exactly what you're doing, like going and him and a couple of people were getting a bunch of samples of the soil, and they're like, it's good, later on you're like, good, it's good, we're fine, thank goodness we didn't,
what's funny though is so a lot of our
contaminate
we had to send most of our samples back to the United States to chip them, which was the health organization. I can't remember what it stands for now, but we basically never got the results for any of that. And I know that stuff wasn't clean.
You're like, there's somebody back there looking at like, we definitely cannot let them know that this is going on. They're like, we're gonna need you to lose that sample.
Because we had very limited things that we could actually test out there. So a lot of it we had to send back, and we never heard the results. So
just gotta assume it's all good, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's the story, and that's their story, and we're sticking with it.
I did my job. That's all I can say.
So you start off as a reservist. Were you reservist when you met Dan at the The Boy Scout Jamboree.
Yeah. So we were in the 3-9.
When I read that again, it totally kicked into the Jamboree. Like I told him, I was like, I started laughing when I was like, oh my God. Because he was so excited about that story. So at the Boy Scout Jamboree.
Yeah. We were both in the reserves. That was pretty much the first time we met. And I started calling him my future husband before we even started dating. Cause you know, he was that good looking. So we did the Boy Scout Jamboree, which was a ton of fun. It was basically our annual training for that year. And I got to treat bed bugs for the first time ever and stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, that's where we met.
How fitting for the preventive med specialist to get bed bugs.
Oh, I didn't get bed bugs. The Boy Scouts did. Oh. Yeah. So once
I was like, whoa.
Once we got there, I actually got put with an active duty preventive medicine. The reserves MPs did not know what to do with me. Like anything that was not military police, they had no idea what to do with you. So I actually got to hang out with this active duty unit for the entire AT, which was great because they're all the same MOS, they have experience and everything. But there was a bed bug outbreak with the Boy Scouts, not us. And we got to treat that, which was, one of the few times I got to put that side of my job to use.
That's gotta be a horrible thing to happen though. All these Boy Scouts go there. Like I'm starting to itch. Whenever somebody says bed bugs, you start to itch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That used to be my wife's biggest fear. Like I traveled a lot in the old job, and she'd be like, "Oh," and you start thinking about it. And you're like, but I did hear about bed bugs. So I heard Columbus is in like the top.
Oh,
1, 2,
really?
like the top 3 or something in bed bugs.
Oh, interesting.
Because they say it's because of like because it's like midway point for a lot of people coming in. So a lot of people are staying the night and moving over. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah,
so don't stay in a hotel in Columbus, I guess. I
right. We don't normally need to. My sister actually got bed bugs. This was actually after I had joined the military. So she picked them up from some friend's house or something. And my parents just could not get rid of them. So I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. Let me help you. And we got rid of the bed bugs.
Did you fumigate the whole house? And
just her room, basically. Yeah.
We got to move her out. It's amazing how that helped the family. That's
I know. It was kind of funny. Made me feel useful.
So you bounced around the reserve. You said you went back to school a little bit. That wasn't working out.
Wasn't my thing. So Dan and I met, fell in love so quickly and had a baby very quickly. And, he was still in college. We were working, minimum wage jobs and stuff like that. So before we met, I had actually planned on going active duty, had already talked to the counselors and everything, or the recruiters. And then I met him and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going. But then we were struggling. So decided that I would go active duty, got stationed at Fort Carson, which was awesome. And then it did like 3 years and 4 months because I got stop lost for a minute and decided it wasn't really our thing. So we went back to Ohio. I got assigned to the Reserve Civil Affairs Unit. And then about 2 years into it, they asked me to pick up an AGR position, and I did. And the rest is history. Did that for 14 years.
It's an active guard reserve. That's basically like we just had, our last guest was on there before, just for people that listen, it's like being active duty, but in the National Guard.
Yeah. So mine was for the reserve. So the difference, so National Guard AGRs, they only get stationed in their state. Right. With the reserves, we were all over the place. We were at Fort Bragg, Naval Station Newport in Rhode Island. We were out at JBLM. And I was stationed here in Columbus twice.
So what made you decide to go the civil affairs route when you got back?
So I was an E5. It was the only reserve unit in the area that had an E6 position. So I knew I could get promoted to E6. And then I was actually going to go AGR for a career counselor and was working through that process. And then the unit that I was in opened up company level training NCOs, which they had never had before. And so my commander called me and said, hey, we really want you to do this. And so I reclassed and jumped right in.
So let's go back to meeting Dan. You said it happened pretty fast. What was what do you attribute that to other than his great looks? Like what?
His awesome personality. What was the concert we went to? Ozfest, yeah. So our first it wasn't even a date. We just met up with friends at Ozfest and then fell in love and got pregnant 4 months later and had a baby and then got married.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
I did start a new thing. It's great to be able to be in charge of the podcast, so you can start a new thing. So anytime I have a spouse now, I'm gonna allow him to have a question for. We have he actually did 2 questions, so we're gonna do the Dan question now. So we'll start with the easy one, which is he would like to know if he can grow a mustache now. Is that okay?
No.
And why is that?
Because it's gross on him.
Okay.
It's gross on him. So funny story. He grew one out for is that Alaska?
Last summer,
AT. Because that's what all the little boys in the reserve do is they grow a mustache for drill weekends and stuff. And so he grew one out, and my daughter and I were just like, "That's so gross." So when he got home, we locked the door. And I put a razor and shaving cream out on the porch. He sat in his car and shaved before we let him back in.
Was it like what kind? Was it like a? I mean, side like can he do like
can he
do like a fireman mustache? You know, like a longer.
Well, there's the regulation, so I'm sure it was just.
Yeah, but but soon, I mean, and that's not true because they just got him for a few more years. He just got promoted, so they got him. But like when he retires, he can't try like the fireman move, you know.
I don't like I don't mind facial hair, but on him, and I don't mind mustaches. I don't like it on him.
I think pure mustache is creepy too. I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
it's like because my dad had one too, but he had like growing up was the straight the hardcore NCO military one that was like like is it Adams Gomez Adams
right.
And it was always because the military mustaches are creepy.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can go over the side though, like the fireman mustache, or
maybe,
or like the big old,
So he's got drill
wax.
this weekend. You know what he's going to do? He's going to shave the sides of his face and then come downstairs with what you just described. Yeah. So I guess we'll see what it looks like.
We're conspiring to help. I mean, let the guy grow a stash now. He's the same rank as you. You can't boss you around now.
No,
I can't boss him around. I'm sorry.
No.
I think every guy should be able to have a mustache. But
I mean, he gets to when he's not in the house. When he's away for training.
We'll wait for the next question till later.
Okay.
I think it's going to talk into some other stuff, but he kind of let you off pretty easy on the questions. If you ask me, they're pretty weak questions, but that's all right.
Yeah, that first question was all for him. That was all for him.
I mean, he tried though. I mean, he wants to have a mustache. Let the guy have a mustache.
I actually think it's funny that he said that.
So you go AGR. So you guys are moving around now. Where's the first place you go on with your AGR assignment?
So got picked up in Columbus, and I did a 4-year tour here, and then got transferred to Fort Bragg, and that was actually it was the Special Warfare Center in school, SWCC. So that was an interesting combination of mostly active duty people with a few AGRs. So I got there, and I was an AIT platoon sergeant, which they're gone now. They don't do it anymore, but kind of like a drill sergeant, but a step down because they want AIT to be more not as scary. And we didn't get the cool hats or the badge, but I did that. So.
And so, like for people who know, civil affairs, large reserve population of what percentage of the civil affairs units are reserves? It's high, isn't it?
Yes. So civil affairs is really unique in the fact that active duty just kind of goes into very quickly, get things set up, and then the reserves come in and kind of take over. And the reason kind of for that is that in the reserves, everybody has a civilian job. So you've got police officers, healthcare workers, construction people. And so when you're going in to help a civilian population with what they need help with, wells, roads, whatever it is, the civil affairs has such a variety, and the reserves has such a variety of civilian careers that it makes them perfect for going in and helping.
Yeah, it is one of those, you see it with a lot of reserve units, but it does fit perfectly. Like the guy that we tagged along, civil affairs officer, he was actually a Harvard professor, which was pretty interesting. I mean, it was just, everybody was like, this guy's this, and she's this. And it's like, they have all these like real skills. Like, I mean, not that, the military is a skill, but actually real skills with what the civil affairs is trying to do to, to help them out with the things they need. So it does kind of fall into place. So you head to Fort Bragg. I think we can call it that now again. It's back to Fort Bragg.
Yes, officially.
I never stopped calling it that, but
No,
that's
I didn't
fine.
either.
No, but 4 years there at SWIC.
That was 3. Yeah.
Okay.
That was by far my toughest duty station.
What years were you there again?
I was there from 2012 to 2015. Okay. Yeah. So, but just at times 14-hour days, 7 days a week, lots of staff duty, just at one point my daughter said, "Mommy, can you ask your boss to give you a day off? Because we miss you," just heartbreaking. So a rewarding position. I've run into a lot of former students as I go to different duty stations. There was 1 or 2 that would be there, and it was kind of cool watching them go from, a private in their, AIT, and then, I see them later and they're an E5, E6, and, that's rewarding to see them being successful.
Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the comment your daughter did. So let's talk about this now from the mom view, because like, and we won't stereotype it, but I feel like sometimes, I mean, I can't tell how many times if I was being honest, like I would pretend like it didn't bother me, but I didn't care. Like there was no way I would even like entertain that conversation about getting a day off. So is that the first time that you started struggling with being, soldier mom, like, or did it start earlier? Like talk about that if you can a little bit about that struggle.
I'd say the first time I struggled with it was when I was deployed. My son was pretty much a year old when they said, "Hey, you're deploying." So that was tough. And that was probably the first time where I was like, wow, this really affects me. Because the medical unit I was in garrison, going to the field was setting up a tent in our back parking lot and doing like a 9 to 5 field exercise. So that part wasn't too bad. So it probably started there. And then, every time I went TDY for a school or whatever, you're missing out on a lot. And then, my husband has to hold down the fort, and, I couldn't have done any of that without him. He cooks and cleans and takes care of the kids and all the stuff that I needed when I was gone.
Yeah. The military spouses, male, female, whatever it is, it's, I say this all the time. It's like when so many people are so quick to be like thanking, us for the service member for their time. But like the older I get, the more appreciation I have for what, the spouse is doing, because they literally are keeping everything together. I mean, then not to mention, 3 or 4 years later, uprooting and moving to a different place, starting all over, having to deal with that. But in your opinion, I mean, this is just your opinion, harder being a mom to do that or a dad, do you think?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, let me first say, I've dealt with this from both sides because my husband's in, so he does schools and deployments. I 100% would rather be the person that is TDY than the person that's staying at home. 100%.
Do you feel guilty about that though?
Yes, I definitely have like working mother's guilt. I spoiled my children more than I probably should have because, I felt bad for being gone so much and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I want to say it's tougher for the moms, but, I've seen fathers struggle with it too, but, I don't know if that's accurate, but I feel like the moms do have it a little tougher.
It's interesting you said that though, because I think it's that mindset too. Is I mean, for me, if I look at it, I mean, I think it's way harder to stay back and do with all the kind of stuff. You were doing like male, female, whatever. You're mom, dad, you're doing what you want to do. The other person's stuck literally holding the bag.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's good to hear you say that you kind of felt the same way, because I think it has to be the same or it wouldn't work, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's tough about anytime you deploy when you have kids, is the complexity of,
Yeah. And when I deployed, we were in Colorado and family is here in Ohio. So, and I think I was only there for 3 months before I deployed. So we still hadn't like met people and all that kind of stuff. So Dan was just on his own in another state away from family. So, yeah. So
another reason why you should let him have a mustache. That's what you just said. See that?
No.
That's another. I'm just put a tick mark for him here. That's Die Hard.
I'll let him,
one tick mark.
I'll let him go grow a mustache when you do that VA thing we were talking about. How's that?
I think I'll do that for a mustache.
Okay.
No, I've already got to do that. I'm glad you bring that up. We had a long discussion about the VA.
Yeah.
So you're doing well in the VA. You're enjoying your time as retirement and being taken care of. I have a promise. I'm going. Yeah, I'll put that in there too. Yeah, if I go to the VA too, my dad will be off my back, and Dan can grow a mustache.
Yes.
The fireman mustache, any kind of mustache he wants
For a day.
No, come on. He's got to be able to grow long. No, we'll do that. But I definitely, you good dig. You got me in there. I'll go.
All right.
We'll talk about that more.
Okay.
So, back again. So, you said it started with the deployment, you all your TDYs, did it ever get any easier as the kids got older, as you got used to doing it, or is it still the same feeling?
Yeah, I'd say the TDYs got easier, but the change of duty stations got harder. When they're young, it's kind of an adventure, but as they get in like middle school and start, or even elementary, and start getting those strong bonds with friends and stuff, and then you're uprooting them from that, and it got harder pretty much every time we PCS'd as they got older.
Have you ever asked your kids about that, like the moving around, if they like feel bad about it, or does it feel like it made them stronger? Have you ever
for the most part, they appreciate the experiences that they got, living all over the place. My son is still, he's very much into video games and stuff. So he's got this whole community of friends from different duty stations that we've been at that he still is friends with through video games and stuff. And so now, like, some of them have never met, but they're all friends now through the video games, which I think is kind of neat. I think my daughter struggled a little bit more. This last time that we PCS'd, it was her junior year of high school. So she had to get uprooted in the middle. She did her junior and senior year here. So that was definitely, our whole family did not enjoy JBLM Washington State. We were not happy there. So when it came time, this was my final duty station. So when it came time to decide where we're going, this time I really talked to the kids and said, okay, here's our choices. What do you want to do? And they were basically, I don't care. Get us out of the state.
That made it easy for you.
Yeah. So they had good friends there and stuff, but it just, it never felt like home. It just wasn't our place. So, as I got older, we had more conversations about it and they had more input and stuff like that. So I think for my daughter, the hard thing for her is she doesn't have those strong friendships with people that she would have liked to have. But she's in college now. And I tell her, I'm like, this is where you're going to meet the people that you are friends with forever. College is the place. Yeah. So, and I don't think she ever would have, she's in the University of Maine. I don't think she ever would have left Ohio to go to college if we hadn't moved around a lot. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because when my oldest son, we moved here when he was a freshman in high school. So that was a worry of like, I wanted, I moved around, but I wanted to make sure they were like there to have that all the way through.
Yeah.
You see that like the kids that are friends, but you're right. Like how many people do you talk to in high school? I mean, if it wasn't for like social media, I don't think I'd talk to anybody from high school anymore. But
we had the option of staying there for my last 2 years, but they were like, no, get us out of here.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, for me, I feel like it made me a little bit more resilient and open to the idea of like going to where the opportunity is. That makes sense.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if this is a better place, you're used to being able to move, because you do see some people that live in the same spot their whole entire life, and then they go to school, 10 miles away, and kind of leaving. But that's, I'm not saying they're wrong or making them wrong, but yeah, I think with the military kids, we're kind of open to moving around a little bit. And I feel like we're, in most part, for me, I feel like you're a little bit more open to getting to know people too, because it starts young to be able to kind of like start over, to make new friends. You have to.
Yeah.
I guess you don't have to but it would behoove you to do that. But I think you can like start over, which I think, it doesn't hurt,
Yeah. Our son is on the spectrum. So he, I don't know, was never very good socially anyway, which is why he made those connections online. Because he gets online with his video games. He's a completely different person, just, talkative and kind of a leader and stuff. And, I'm glad that he had that. I think that helped him. So
yeah, I can't imagine too growing up like that. How you can still talk to him too. There's FaceTime. I mean, those gaming. It isn't as bad as like you're just leaving and maybe we'll see you at the next studio station. Most likely we're not.
Right.
I'll call you from the one phone when if I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not, I think it's. I don't want to say it's gotten easier, but it's definitely easier to stay connected when you move to different places.
Absolutely.
So back to your deployment to Iraq. What was the hardest part of that, other than being away from the kids and Dan, of course? But
well, I'll say I'm very lucky. I never saw combat. We had some scary moments with mortars being fired into base and stuff like that, but I will say I'm very lucky to not feel in danger. I would say honestly the hardest part for me was there were not a lot of females, so you were stared at. You'd go into the dining facility and everyone would just stop talking while you walked to your table. I got proposed to while I was inspecting a water buffalo. It was just, we'd go out to these remote FOBs that were just all infantrymen, and it was just like a swarm, and it was uncomfortable. Dan and I had a thing. So we had to use pay phones, and you're just jammed in there, and just young and stupid. I had a really hard time being like saying I love you and stuff to him, because it was just this room full of men basically. And it just, it was really uncomfortable. I was lucky I had 3 females in my unit, but we literally were one of few everywhere we went. So that was honestly the hardest part for me.
So looking back on that, what do you just attribute that to the culture of the? I mean, if people haven't been there, it is generally a male dominant, I'd say. So and then depending on where you're at and what you're doing, you can that can even tip even more to more guys. Like, what do you think the military could do to change that whole culture, or is there anything that leaders could have done to stop something like that? Because something like that I've never seen, where the whole DFAC stop. As an officer, I'd be like, like chill out, but it's hard to, when you hear it, it's like there's a part of me that just is like it's awful, but then there's a part of it's hard to explain. How do you change something like that?
Yeah,
It's crazy to.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think, I joined in 99. I deployed in 2000, OIF 1. And there are so many more women in the military now, and they're able to do jobs with men that they couldn't do before. So I do think that dynamic is changing. When I was in the civil affairs unit the first time, there were very few females, very few. And I was in E7. So usually the senior female NCO. They used to call my company the battered women's shelter, because anytime there was an issue with a female, they would ask me to mentor or whatever. And back then I appreciated that. I felt like they trusted me and that I was doing a good job. Looking back on it now, I'm like, that's such BS, because, leadership, regardless of gender, should have been able to help these females. Now, when I came back to the 412, we have I don't know what the percentage is, but there are so many women. And, we've got women company commanders, we've got women first sergeants. We did not have that before. So I think just women being able to do more has changed the culture a bit. I'm not saying it's perfect, but, if you go for a jump and you're the only female there, and they call you out and you're like, Skunza 3492, and everybody turns around because they're like, why is there a female here? So, now that there's just more of us, I don't think it's such a, oh my God, I haven't seen a female for 3 months,
It's just the airborne thing is funny with women, because when I got my German jump wings, we jumped in a German C-130, and one of the female lieutenants was super small.
Yeah.
She couldn't reach the anchor line cable.
Yep.
So the German jump master, or the AJ, was he literally had a cigarette in his mouth, comes and just pulls down the anchor line cable as much as he can, and she kind of reaches up there and he just grabs it and hooks it on there. He's like, yeah, this is why we don't have female paratroopers. And we're like, no, you're not allowed to say that. But they were shocked to see female paratroopers. I mean, they were like, it was the same way they were. I just picture how they were, because they all, like, we had I can't remember her name, a female lieutenant. She was a jump master. So she's JMPI and everybody. There's like 7 jump masters out there. Every German is in line for her to JMPI, and we're like, no, come over. They're like, no, wait, we're good. We're like, no, get over here. Like, it was just so when you hear that, there's a part of me that, like, it just makes me cringe to think about.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just how I guess it's just how it was.
Yes,
I mean, you would, if anything was like what I would say, like, completely inappropriate, you know, as a leader, you'd say something, but like, it was just the way it was. I don't know how you could change it back then to be like.
Yeah. And I don't know if you could, but speaking of a jump, so we went to Canada and jumped with them. And so we went over their JMPI process, and, you know, as usual, one of their equipment checks is their balls to make sure the straps aren't, like, you know what I mean? Like, and so they're going through everything, and then they stop because there's like 3 females, and they don't have female paratroopers, and they're like, oh, we're so sorry for this. And then they continued on. And then at some point we went through our processes with them, and, you know, you tap the person. And I had some like older Canadian guy behind me. He's like, can we do that again?
Yeah. That same jump master was time when she was JMPI'd, she hit one guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm in love. You know what I mean? We're like, just keep going, guys. Like, it's you know, because if you don't know, the last thing you do is then JMPI is the seal of approval, which is, you know, the leg. And, you know, I like the inner leg to your friends as hard as you possibly could to, you know, make them buckle, you know what I mean? But usually it's just a nice tap and be on their way. But yeah, that's
and even some of the jump masters, when they're doing the checks, like on the straps down there, and I'm like, no, I'm a soldier. You make sure I'm not going to die on this jump. Don't do it different for me. Like, just, I don't want to die.
Yeah, that's interesting when you do that. Like, I don't ever remember that being an issue. Like, you just do it. It's like, it's part of your job. I would never have been. I can see if you were like, you know, if it was like a different partner force, but like, you know, when I was in the 82nd, there was women everywhere. You know what I mean? So it wasn't abnormal to do that.
Yeah.
Female jump masters, and
not all of them did it. There were a few, and you had to be like, no, just do it correctly. Like,
it's better than like
a soldier.
That's better than like the USASOC guys are like, they would just JMPI by looking at you. Like,
so we would.
I was on a jump one time, and we were JMPIing everybody, and like, it's just this other jump master and I, and he's with, I think it was with 7th, or I think maybe 3rd. I can't remember what special. I can't remember the groups anymore, but he's like looking at me, and I'm like, and he's like literally telling me like, you're good. And I'm like I'm telepathically telling him, like, are you getting JMPI? And then we're like staring each other down. He's like, do you want me to JMPI you, sir? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he was just like, oh, you 82nd guys. Like, and I'm like, and it was very like, I mean, and I went to put on my ballistic helmet. He's like, you don't need to do it. I'm like, dude, yes, you do. Like, we have to do it. But, and he's like, I'm not putting on my helmet. But he told me, and I'm like, fine, that's fine. I mean, he's like, I'm going to fucking take it off anyways. Am I right? So what's the difference? I'm like, that's fine. But it's a different, it's a very different.
We jumped a lot with the SF unit out at Rickenbacker, and their jump masters would be like, do you want the real JMPI or the Special Forces JMPI? And I'm like, the real one, please. Like,
I will take the real one. I take the real one always, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But
let me think that too, though. Well, I think if you know what you're doing, looking at the parachute first, I would be okay with it. But still, it's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So just to protect everybody, I would never give anybody that option. And I'd never done it where no one. I say that now, but I was a diehard 82nd guy where we would, kind of nerdy and over the top with, you know, airborne operations. You know. Yeah,
we actually had a guy die on a jump, and it was basically from. Part of it was equipment malfunction, but he was an SF guy, and you know, it just makes you wonder.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen. That's one of the funny things. It's one of the easiest things to do, I think, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong pretty quick. That
I struggled with it. I could not get my body, out of the aircraft. Once I was in the air, I loved it. I trusted my equipment. I knew how to land. You know, it was just mentally.
Everybody lands, though, right? No, they're not.
Yeah. But yeah, I was always confident in all that stuff, but just getting my body to exit an aircraft was my struggle.
I look back, I think I loved everything except for landing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my size. I felt like I was like a human, like
Yeah.
weight. Like it's like I'd see people like you, like small people. They'd be like just floating down.
Yes, very
and land,
soft
and they
and
land,
gentle.
and they're like, oh, you're like, me on my helmet. You've been knocked unconscious, like bit your tongue and out. Like it's just. I feel like it was just not. Landing sucks. It was like, I mean, that's the worst part of it. Everything else is great.
I've had some bad landings. Not everything's been perfect, but for the most part, I trusted that muscle memory that I knew what I was doing. Sometimes the wind shifts or whatever, and you're going to have a bad landing, but for the most part, I didn't. It was probably my size too. I'm not as big as
it is. There's so many things if you've never done it, they don't, that your size, like, so it's your weight. It's just going to take you down. People are listening. So like, I could be the last person out and be the first, like I was the first person that landed, like most of the time, like, but you would literally see, like, especially in the daytime when you can notice, you'd see somebody just floating around. Like, it's like, what the, like, and then that's literally, they land like it's a steerable parachute. And you're like, oh my God, this is not fair. I would do everything. I'd do it again as long as I didn't have to land. I slipped on ice a couple weeks ago and how I felt falling like 3 feet. I'm like, God, I couldn't imagine really falling. I'd be like, help me. That's why it's a young man and young woman's game for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
For sure. So you leave Bragg. We stopped at Bragg a little bit there. Then from Bragg, you went to
Newport, Rhode Island. Okay. There's a naval station up there that had a civil affairs unit there. So when it came time for me to leave SWCC, I had an option. I was able to pick where I wanted to go, and we just were not liking any of the choices. And I had a buddy that was stationed up in Rhode Island. So I called him. I'm like, all right, tell me about this Rhode Island place, because never would have thought to go there. And he sold me on it, just beaches and sailboats and all this kind of stuff. And so we get there, and it was like, as soon as because where we were was basically an island. It's called Aquidneck Island. So it wasn't on the mainland. So as soon as we like crossed over the bridge, we're like, oh, this place is awesome. And it felt like home. We did not want to leave. It was great.
Isn't Narragansett from Rhode Island, beer?
Pretty close. Right? Yeah.
Another good reason for Rhode Island.
What's that?
That's another great place for reason for. That's the only reason I know Rhode Island is from Narragansett. And some of my college classmates that went there. I don't even think I've been to Rhode Island before.
I mean, who goes there, right? Like that's
that.
Why I called my buddy and he sold me on it. I'm like, oh my God, we love this place. And then so Newport has a bunch of, they're called summer cottages, but they're mansions. From the Gilded Age, like Biltmores and all that kind of stuff. So they would come down from New York and summer in Newport, and so they had their cottages there. So that was really cool. Just and so that's where they all vacationed. You don't think of it as being a vacation spot, but it is.
So what were you doing there besides soaking up the beaches, sailing?
So I was a training NCO for Alpha Company. So essentially I handled making sure everything's set for drill weekends and annual training, sending soldiers to school. You're pretty much the only full-time staff for your company. So whatever else they needed, you're the go-to person. So, you're kind of doing everything for them.
Do you like being solo like that, or?
Yeah. So I learned a lesson very early on when I did my first AGR tour. I would do anything and everything, and I burned myself out so quick. I was actually walking with a guy to go back to my office, and people kept stopping me, and he's like, Sergeant Skunza, I feel like I'm with a rock star because everybody's calling your name and stuff. And the truth of that is that it's a lot, when everybody's contacting you and stuff like that. So I learned my lesson then that I need to have boundaries. And also when I was leaving, my first sergeant was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to do this without you? Because they were that dependent on me. Mm-hmm. So after that, I started kind of putting boundaries out. Like, Private Joe couldn't call me. He needed to go through his team sergeant, and then they reach out and stuff like that, just kind of, because I wasn't doing anybody any favors either, developing leadership and stuff, because I was kind of taking over everything. So it wasn't doing anyone else any good either, because they weren't getting the experience of helping soldiers and stuff. So big lesson learned. Had to put my foot down after that. So
in most AGR assignments, you are like one of few people, like one or a few, anybody that's thinking about doing that kind of job, what kind of advice would you have for them, where you're, drill weekend, everyone's around, you deploy, everyone's around, but a lot of the time it's maybe just you and, a couple other people.
Yeah. And so civil affairs is actually pretty lucky because as a battalion, they got rid of the trainee NCOs, but you do actually have a semi-robust staff, including civilians and stuff. So civil affairs isn't too bad, but I do know other units that literally have one AGR and that's it. So my biggest advice is to put boundaries in place and let the leadership do what they're supposed to do, because you can't do it all. And like I said before, you're not doing anybody any favors as, for leader development if you're handling everyone's problems.
Yeah, because that was interesting, because I was AGR I was an AGR unit when I left Bragg, and so we were the active component. So we were around with, and we had one AGR.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We had one AGR, soldier that was there, but it was a struggle there. Like, I was a captain, but like the team leader was a major, reserve major, and there was like 3 other captains there, and they I can't remember the exact structure, but like that was really hard for them, like to get the major and like these captains to do their job. Like, you know what I mean? They would like, even though I was an active dude, they would call, somebody would call me, and I'm like, have you called like, Captain McKissick? No, he's your, like, but it is your nature to be, I think for me, it was always like you just want to help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But you really weren't helping, when you went and, when we go to, AT, they have no clue how to like, to lead these people. Like it was like, they haven't figured out how to do these basic things, and you're like, you should know how to do this. And I would watch that too, even back then, watching them just like the AGR, I can't remember her name, but her phone would just be ringing nonstop about them, every question about this and that. And I'm like, you have your leadership's number, give them a call, help them figure it out.
Well, and it's gotten worse with cell phones. Like I started getting very picky about who I gave my cell phone number out to, because I would literally like get texts at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, I get out of bed, immediately have a text of something that's not an emergency. And so then I'm thinking about work, and then I'm pissed off, because I'm waking up and just thinking about work. And then in the evenings too, like, and I get it with reserve soldiers, they have a full-time job. So they're doing their Army stuff in the evening, I get that. But especially after Signal and WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff, just constant conversations going on. Even if they're not talking to you directly, you're a part of these group chats. So it's just,
I'm glad I missed that, because I could not
Yeah.
imagine there being like a platoon chat where you're trying to disseminate information. I would have killed somebody. I literally would have. Like you said before, like even if you're in like chats now, like there's nothing worse than getting added to a chat that you don't want to be in. I did that to Nate and Chad today, bring them all together, you know what I mean? But there's nothing worse than when you're on the chat that you don't want to be on, and like you said, there's like, you open it and there's like 64 things, and then someone's, then it's supposed to be for one thing, and then all of a sudden there's like memes in it, and like you're just like, dude, I don't know how people I don't know how that helps either. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's for dissemination of information, I get it, but like other than that, like and then them being on side, like thank God I was not in those days. Like,
we would complain about it because it's like they would put all this information out on, say, like Signal, but it's not organized. It's here and there, and you have to dig through, and it's not an effective way for the military to communicate. Leadership saying, "Hey, get to drill at this time," great, but when you're actively doing like basically training meetings through Signal, it's just like, and as a full-time staff, we did complain about that. And then, at one unit we brought up like, look, this is getting to be too much. We don't ever have a chance to unwind. This is just too much. And of course we got the whole, well, you're active duty. It's, Army 24/7, blah, blah, blah. But it affects your mental health, and leadership, when you don't have a person coming to you, you have your full-time staff coming to you and saying, hey, this is really stressing us out, like, and the leadership is just like, you're AGR, you're 24/7, blah, blah, blah. We tried to bring it up and it just fell on deaf ears.
Yeah. I think there's I can't remember when it was, but pretty recently, I think there's a colonel or higher that like made a big rule about that now. There's no communicating on, by text or at certain hours. They kind of blocked out, which is good. Because I think I just makes me laugh too. Because like if you talk about our days, like we'd stand for hours and hours waiting to get information given to us when we would be like, God damn, if they could just give. So there's like, I see both sides of it, but again, like come to the middle and have it, use it the best way you can, not overdo it. That's typical of the military, like, standing in line waiting for 2 hours to have somebody tell you to be back at 1. You're like, if somebody could have texted me that, then, now look what it's turned into. It's crazy.
Yeah. I remember when cell phones first kind of came out, I was at Fort Carson on active duty, and nobody would give their cell phone number out because you were paying for the minutes, and then it was like new. So you're like, I don't want anybody to be able to contact me 24/7. Like, it was so different back then, where it's like, you can email me or you can call my home phone.
Yeah. I mean, even there, like I was telling my son, I had a pager. I thought that was the coolest thing. Yeah. And that was when you were cool.
That was high school. Yeah.
But that was for me in the Army though. We had that's what you had. If you were like, you were, particularly you had a pager, and my son's like, what do you do? I'm like, I think he asked my wife, and she's like, you just found a phone and you called them back. And they're like, that doesn't seem very. I'm like, what are you talking about? They call you, like, how do you, like, they tell you where they are at, and you're just and then we were talking about actually the stupid messages you used to send on the pager, and they were like, they lost interest so quick on the pager. But I remember, when phones, you had the limited minutes, like you couldn't text only a certain amount of time before you started getting the world has changed now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it is a double-edged sword. Like, it's a great way to. It's an easy way to communicate, but it does get overwhelming. And, I think leadership needs to take that into account. I get that we're 24/7. I get that reserves, they have their full-time job and we need to support them when they're available. But there needs to be boundaries, and if you're bringing it up to your leadership, they need to listen and say, okay, how can we kind of take a step back from this and help our staff?
Yeah.
Because if we're burned out, we're not performing at our best, so
it is a delicate balance, like you said, but a lot of it should come from, ultimately, like you said, a lot of the times, you said it a few times, is leadership should be able to control all these things. And the sad part about it is it's the leaders that are the ones that break the rules all the time. If I remember my days, like the staff officer that's there at like 4 a.m. and there until 10 o'clock at night, and they're telling you that this is the way it has to be. This is if you want to be effective, and then come to find out they just don't want to go home and be with their family. You know what I mean? Yeah. So all these, it's leadership is always the key to it. But I'm so glad I'm not in any of those chat texts. Like, I would lose my mind.
The first thing I did on my last day of work when I got home is I deleted Signal and WhatsApp. Like, just took them off my phone.
I will never use them again.
That was the best thing I ever did.
So you leave beautiful Rhode Island.
And we go to Fort Lewis, JBL, or Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Which is your favorite assignment?
No, we didn't like it at all.
What didn't you like about it?
Okay, so first of all, we were leaving Rhode Island, and everybody was upset about that because we really just loved it. So we did have a cool trip out there. We took 2 weeks to do it. So we stopped at Niagara Falls, Mount Rushmore, Yellowstone. So it was really, but there were let's see, we had 2 cats and a dog, and 2 kids and 2 parents in a minivan. So that was an interesting 2 weeks, but that was kind of fun. It was stressful, but fun. And then, I don't know, we get there and it's so crowded. It's just so overpopulated, and they can't really support the amount of vehicles and people that they have and stuff. So there was that. And then, if you were trying to go sightseeing, it was always so crowded. And the people out there are just a little different, to where we just didn't really click with them much. And then COVID hit, which really kind of put a damper on things too, I think. So, in all the rain in the winter, it's like gloomy 9 months out of the year. And the summers are beautiful though, really beautiful. But but it was hard to go sightseeing because we don't like crowds, and it was just really overcrowded there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I take you're not going to be going back to Washington anytime soon.
I would not mind going to sightsee because we really did not, with COVID and everything, didn't do as much as we should have. But I will not be moving back there now.
You're like, we're definitely not going back.
Well, it's funny because everybody I've ever known that's been stationed there absolutely loved it. We did not.
So we did blow something. So the Airborne Normandy, Saint Mary-Glise, France. Did you go for D-Day? Was that what that was for?
Yeah, so they do it every year. It's Operation Normandy, and so it's just kind of a recreation of D-Day. Back when I did it, so we first went to Great Britain and we did a jump there. So we got our British wings, and then us and the Brits flew into France kind of at the same time, and we got to do a lot of sightseeing, really. So and there was a guy that was like the expert on the war, and he would point out different battles, like, hey, Private Joe was here and Sergeant Joe was here, and this is how they had the advantage, or this is how the enemy had the advantage. And that was just really cool, and get to see Normandy and the beach and everything like that. And I actually got promoted to E7 out there, which was really awesome. So my promotion was right in front of the church in St. Mary-Glise. So
that's a big, for the 82nd, that's a huge, for all airborne, that's a big deal. That's, you always, that would be a great assignment. Some people were not assigned, but like detailed, everybody that got to go, that was a cool thing to go. I never got to do that, but
yeah, awesome.
That's one of my places I've always wanted to go see is Normandy and see all that.
It's humbling.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
So did you get to interact with any World War II vets while you were doing any of that?
There was one. He was the biggest pervert.
Sorry about that. No, we should have brought that up, Jay. No,
no, he was like very elderly and in a wheelchair, and he had absolutely no problem making rude comments to the females because he's just like, I'm an old man, I don't care. It wasn't.
I don't mean to laugh about it, but like,
yeah, it wasn't anything horrible, and it was actually kind of comical just because of his age and generation and everything. But
yeah, because the World War II veterans I met, they all were very straightforward about what they thought and things. There was not a lot holding things back. So
yeah.
Sorry that happened.
One of the cool things was all the people in the town loved us. Like, you guys freed us all that years ago and stuff. And the fact that the Germans were there too, they thought that was really cool that, this country that invaded us at some point, now we're able to come together and, kind of celebrate D-Day, and there's no hard feelings towards like this generation of German soldiers.
So what was it like seeing all the French people celebrating you and all that? Yeah,
it was fun. And you brought extra patches and stuff, so you could kind of exchange swag and stuff like that. And they loved it. It was fun. They were good. And then you got to go do a dinner with a host family, which was nice. So
well, that's cool. How long was that whole?
I think it was gone for 10 days. Something. So they've shortened it now. They don't do like the whole jump in Britain and stuff or England and stuff like that. So I think it's a little shorter now, but.
Did the whole reserve unit go, or was it just
no, just select
people?
Select people. Yeah.
How did you get selected for that? Did they find out that you were the meat queen or runner-up meat queen, and they were like, we gotta get some royalty on this?
What's funny is I did not tell anybody about that for the longest time. And
sure you didn't. No, I'm kidding.
I was TDY for a change of command. There was a bunch of us, and we were at a steakhouse, and I don't know, something was brought up about the steaks, and I was like, and I should know because I was the beef queen, and they're all like, what did you say? And I'm like, crap. So I would have given anything for you to have brought the sash and wear it right now. God. It would have been so great. I don't think I would have been able to stop laughing. I should have. That would have been funny.
I love. It's funny that you can laugh about, but that's a big deal at the time, right? I mean,
it was.
Come on.
And so
you're a kid. Who cares? It's fun
from
stuff.
that point on, I was on a team, and I had these two jokesters on my team. They were junior enlisted, and they would come up and go to parade rest and be like, Sergeant BQ for Beef Queen. And I'm like, it's more disrespectful when you say that at parade rest than if you just say it. And then one time we're at the range, and I put my PC on because we were wrapping it up for the day, and some private was like, Sergeant, I think you have the wrong hat. And I pull it off, and there's the name tape is Beef Queen. It says Beef Queen. And I was like, Pelosi. I knew exactly who did it. He's like, oh my God. He's like, I've got 2 more of those. He's like, I bought them months ago, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to, put it on. So that was pretty funny.
They should have told. That used to be a game that we got played all the time. Is when they had pin on rank, like especially with officers, they'd always like put your gold bar, sideways or at an angle, and like it's like almost you get traumatized by it because you're so you're so like. You just look like a spaz because you're always fixing it, and then they're like, you're, and even when it's not right or it is right, they're freaking you out. And then I used to, my platoon sergeant used to always screw with me because he said, "We got to go, like, come on, we got to go to formation." He would have my PC and like throw it to me, and I can't tell you how many times I just like took it and would go out there, and then they're all laughing at you. You're just like, you fucker, you're supposed to be looking out for me, and you're not. You're making it worse for me. So then you start to learn put it in your pocket. Like it's one of those things. Like that's why the Velcro is great. I mean, you can play so many great pranks on people.
That was a good one. I still have that name tape, and I like would hang it up in my office everywhere I went, discreetly because I don't want people so much asking about it. But I'm comfortable now.
You don't have that next to the crown and the sash in your office.
No, those are in a box. I really should. I really should frame them or something, like a shadow box.
Oh my goodness! So you got to get a picture, put it in your office there. So.
I'll try to dig them up on my phone and show you after this.
So we've talked your way all the way to good old Washington.
Yep.
So last duty assignment. I think that's the last time I think that's when I first started talking to you. You were still out there, weren't you?
No, but we had just gotten here pretty much.
Okay. Maybe.
It was we would have been here like less than a year. No, almost 2. But so came time for my terminal assignment. Talked to the family about it. Everybody agreed they did not want to stay in Washington. So I found this sweet gig in Maine. We really wanted to get up to like New England type area. And there was this sweet, it was ROTC, like basically platoon sergeant, AGR, would have been a cake, nice. And it would get me out of, civil affairs. I kind of needed a break from doing that kind of stuff. So I get the position, and everything. And then 6 months later, when it came time to cut orders, they're like, oh, we gave that to someone else. I was like, ugh. So our choices were Illinois, Ohio, or Florida. Kids said no way on Florida. And so we ended up coming back to Ohio, just, family's getting older, just wanted to kind of be around family. I don't know if we'll stay here forever, but it ended up being a good choice for us. We didn't ever want to come back to Ohio, but it ended up being a great choice. So. And
the 412th is the one is that Captain Lawless's unit?
It is, okay, and Colonel Scheck.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Where's he at now? He's in Texas now or something, right?
He's probably watching this, and I don't remember.
Oh my gosh!
I don't remember.
Once you leave, they forget about you. See that?
He is off doing great things. That's where he is.
That's a good answer.
That's where he is.
Good cover up. You should have said that first before you said you didn't know. You should have been for operational security. I can't tell him where he's up, but he's off doing great things.
Yeah, I need to work on my. I need to work on my responses.
Oh my goodness, it's always funny, but I'm trying to think. He was here a while ago. It's been a while.
Yeah, he was the first 412th to do it, and then he probably talked Captain Lawson into doing it, and she came on, and then Dan came on, and now here I am.
Now we have the one and only, the Beef Queen.
That's right. Yeah.
Still feel honored.
They used to call me the Master Sergeant, so let's go with that.
The Master Sergeant.
How's that?
So you come back here 2 years and ride out until you retire a couple of years, then you retire here in 2024, right?
Yeah, August 1st. Yeah.
Nice. So we already talked about your least favorite assignment. What was your favorite one?
Rhode Island.
I mean, so that was just the whole experience. Favorite?
Yeah,
just job, location.
Yes.
Okay.
All of it.
What about favorite job?
443. Rhode Island.
You like Rhode Island. Rhode Island wins it all.
Well, my heart is with the 412. That is where I started AGR, and that's where I, became civil affairs, and great people there. Great people. But I did get myself burned out. So we had a full-time staff there that I've never ever experienced, with how tight-knit we were and how well everyone got along together. So that was great. But I did burn myself out, just doing too much for everyone. And it was Ohio. So Rhode Island was just the combination of, great people, great location. We were a mile from the beach, it was good. We liked it. So
that's your number one everything, most rewarding everything?
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't so expensive, we would move back there. Really liked it. It's just,
you're just summering there now. You're not, it's your plan.
We're not rich enough to summer there.
Dan's like, oh my God, don't bring that up.
Well, that was actually the worst PCS, because we moved in July and no one told me it was a touristy town. So we get there and like I said, we had 2 cats and a dog and 2 kids. All the hotels were way out of our budget because they jacked it up for the summer. And I think the longest we were able to stay at one hotel was like 3 days because everything was booked. And it took us a month to get into a house. So we hotel hopped for 2 weeks, and then we ended up renting an apartment, like an Airbnb, up in Providence for the last 2 weeks, just so we would be like stable. But yeah, that was a trip. After that, it was great, but bad PCS.
So you're enjoying retirement?
Loving it. Yes.
Okay. What was the hardest thing about retiring?
Oh, well, I'll be honest with you. I thought when I retired that I would just be like, I feel awesome. I've got all this energy. I'm everything. And, I do have anxiety and depression. And I thought some of that would lift when I retired, and it did not. So that was kind of disappointing to me. But I've gotten some great help now, so I'm in a much different place. But I think that was the hardest. I had expectations of what my life would be like, and it just wasn't as glorious as I thought it was going to be. Best decision I ever made. It was time to get out, but it was harder than I thought it was going to be. So
did you miss the people at all?
I do. I'm able to stop in every once in a while. I miss the people. I miss the camaraderie. I just don't miss the stress of it. I really don't. That was, it was 24/7, just, burned out. So
you talk about anxiety and depression. When did that start? You said you've had it. When did you start having that?
Years, like very early into my career. It's been years and years. So, at first you don't talk about it. It's a big secret because that's how it was when you first came in. As things changed and as I became more senior, definitely by the time I was in E8, I was very open about it because the soldiers need to hear that, because they need to know that it's okay to go get help. So I became, especially with my staff, I didn't hide, going to therapy, being on medications. We'd sit down and have talks sometimes about mental health and well-being and suicide and all that kind of stuff. It just became kind of important to me to not hide it and to let soldiers know that it was okay to, I'm in E8 and I'm sitting here telling you, I have these problems.
So from that time, though, from a young enlisted person to E8, like how were you dealing with it if you, in a culture where you really can't talk about it or address it? Or
so I am really good at not showing that at work. So I put all my energy into work and I excelled. I did great. And I'd get home and I would just be exhausted because I put all my energy into not being depressed and anxious at work, not letting that show. So yeah, it was, I'm thankful that as I got, later into my career, that it was okay to talk about that stuff and okay to admit it, because that kind of took some burden off. But I didn't show it at work. I think towards the end there, I was a little burned out, especially once I knew I was retiring. It was just, I wasn't at the top of my game, but, I still hit it with my work performance. I didn't let it affect my work performance. I was just more vocal about it with the soldiers. So
So if you had any advice for, the culture has changed, and I've been out for a long time too. You're just getting out recently. We've obviously seen the culture's changed. It's still not perfect in my mind. And if you ask anybody, I still feel like there's a taboo to some people to talk about. So what would be your advice to like a young soldier or airman or whatever? Even not a young one, someone's been in the career for that's afraid to say something about it. What advice would you give them?
You have to take care of yourself. And you need to find a balance to where you have time you need to set boundaries or whatever you can do so that you have time to decompress. Cause that's important. When you're 24/7 thinking about work, it's no good. It doesn't, that's what makes you anxious and depressed. So you need to find a way to decompress and put the Army aside. Leaders need to understand that. And like I was saying earlier, with all the technology, they need to respect the fact that soldiers need time to decompress, but also go get the help that you need. And that's physically too. I wouldn't be in the shape that I was in if it wasn't so taboo to go to sick call or whatever. And I think that culture is changing, but that's another thing I've been vocal about is if you're hurt, go get treated. Don't suck it up because you're not doing yourself any good.
Yeah, I mean, especially, it's even more important when you look at it. When I look back at it, I kind of think about, I probably was the person that caused that culture. When someone was hurt or someone with a sick call, there was nothing to that. You'd see people that would be like taking like 15 Motrin a day, and you'd be like, that dude's tough. What I mean? Meanwhile, you're like, that dude's stupid. But if you look back at it, but the mental health part about it, that wasn't even addressed. All things were going on. You got shit for when you were really hurt. Or you didn't know you didn't know if you were hurt or not. You just couldn't go. What I mean? And depending on like you said, the culture you're in, depending on some units you're in, it's taboo, right?
Yeah.
So
you're going to lose your security clearance. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Like I just look back and hear stories of people talk about it, like people self-medicating. Like someone saying, "Hey, my knee hurts. Oh, here I got here's a pill, take this," and it's just crazy. But it's as far as mental health goes, that'd be the same advice I would give is like, you got to take care of yourself. And if you're struggling, talk to somebody because it doesn't get better. I have it that you can't do that on your own. You got to ask for help. And
I would tell my soldiers, like, look, even if you need to go in, I would call it a tune-up, even if you just need to go once or twice just to work through something that you're going through. It's that you don't have to be in therapy long term if you don't need it, whatever. Just go a couple times and address with what you're dealing with, and then move on.
Yeah, because more of me is I thought I could do it myself, so it was just more of the same, right? If I do this, it'll be better. If I do that, like if I get this assignment, it'll be better. And it never happens. It doesn't happen that way. It's more the same. It just continues to do that. Yeah, you just got to find help, and it's okay. And I'm, we were talking before. And I've talked many times on this. I don't care anymore. I talk about it. I struggled. I still struggle today on some things, but now I don't. Try to take care of everything on my own. I try to. I try to. I'm in. My recovery phase of some of the stuff, so I think I can handle myself. But if I don't, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and ask somebody to get somebody's point of view. You just got to get out there and do it. And then I have it now too that if you do get help for yourself mentally, and it costs you your career, maybe you shouldn't be in that career. That's the real lookout
because it's gonna your mental health is gonna go downhill, and it's not worth it.
And it's just, if that's the organization, then maybe that organization isn't right for you. The organization, at some point isn't going to change. But I think, talking about it, being able to just talk about it is amazing. I often think about this a lot. I can't think of anybody that talked about mental health. Like seriously back then, like nobody said anything. If you were, like if some, like if you shared the story that happened to with your sister, like, what people don't realize, when you came back, nobody gave you time to really grieve about it. It was like that's, I understand the importance of that, but it was like, nobody talked about that. Nobody was like, how are you doing? It was like, you're lucky you made it back here. Cause if not, you were going to get, that's how everything was. And I was the leader that did that. And you're just like, holy cow, like the amount of damage that, we could have potentially been done. But also I look at the positive part about it is like, healthy body, like, at the time, some of us are the most physically fit we've ever been. You're able to do, you're lethal in so many ways, but like, imagine how much more lethal and how much more energy, and focus you'd be if you were, mentally tight as well. And I think that's the part that, it's just crazy the things they had us doing and talking about. And that was never one of them. It was never like, are you really okay?
Yep.
Because maybe if they did, everybody would look around to see somebody be like, is anybody scared? And you're just like, everybody's looking around for someone to be like, oh, I dare them to say they're scared. Or somebody say they don't want to do something, like, you know what I mean? Like really like who wants to deploy? Like everybody's like, nobody was not raising their hand.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're going home and crying your car. Like it's just like, it's awful, but that is good advice to get the help you need. So it started, like, when do you think it started in your career then? It was pretty early on.
Yeah. I couldn't really say what actually, it's just been so long. Can't really say what actually triggered it or anything. It was just kind of a gradual thing where it just, comes on, and you might not even recognize it at first, but eventually you do.
So what were the effects at home, if you want to share it? Like you said, you were on your game at work, but you come home. What was, how did that manifest itself at home?
A lot of yelling and not being pleasant. Probably drinking too much wine to cope, that kind of stuff. I haven't been so reactive in several years. I finally got that kind of under control, but it just, and lack of motivation to do stuff, probably not interacting with the kids as much as I could have and stuff like that, just exhausted all the time.
I guess what, don't feel too bad. Me too, on everything you said. And anybody that's out there that struggle with it, they're all saying that too. But they're not saying it, but they're thinking the same thing. So
my kids and I are so close now. So, we have a great relationship. We do.
Yeah. I'm glad that things have gotten better.
Yeah, for sure. And let me tell you, seeing the VA, the mental health care that I'm getting there, this is the first time that I've not felt depressed and anxious. And I can't even remember the last time I didn't. So they're really they've got me on a good treatment plan.
What's working for you?
The meds. Well, no, right now it's more the meds. She just got me. I've been taking them for years and nothing ever worked. I'd feel like maybe it kind of took the edge off, but that's it. She just magically got me on the right combination of medications, and I'm seeing a therapist too, and she's great, and just it's finally all fallen into place.
Never too late.
No, and it's great. It really is. I'm very happy with where I'm at now. So.
That's awesome. I'm glad. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit more about the dual military.
Okay.
What was the biggest challenge of, now you're back, now you're Dan, right? I guess he's you're the stay home parent, permanent stay home parent. What's that? Talk to somebody, like what was the hardest part about being, dual military? Was it hard being dual military? Was it hard being mom in the military? What was the most difficult dynamic of?
I think that kind of went back and forth in a sense. The hardest part of being dual military was any TDYs, one of us having to be, even if it was drill weekend, especially if we had, we weren't always in the same unit. So we might have drill at the same time. And it's like, what do we do with the kids? Like, we don't have family here, that kind of stuff. So juggling that, what I would say was good about it is that we understood each other. I've heard civilians, specifically one of my relatives, their spouse had the opportunity to go to a school for 9 months, but they're like, oh my God, we can't be separated that long. And you just kind of chuckle like, yeah, you can. Yeah. So the fact that we were both able to kind of pick up when the other one was gone and understand what they were doing and stuff, and I'd come home and vent, which I know drove Dan crazy, but he understood because, he's got the experience too. So, just asking each other advice and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely the hardest part is when we had conflicts of being gone.
Right.
So
I just laugh as you bring about the separation thing, you know, because I feel like it's even dual military, just the military spouses and the families. I go crazy when I watch like reality shows when like it's 2 days in and they're like crying that they missed their spouse. Like I was just watching Alone, like Australia, and like they're crying after 2 days, and like I'm watching with my wife and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong? This is 250,000. And my wife's like, you're not like everybody else. I'm like, like, I know you're not going to miss me. It's just, I get it. Like this that part, like because a part of me is like, God, what, like, I really think of it. And it used to really bother me. Like, right. So now I laugh about it being like, God, there's a part of me like, what kind of love do you have that I don't have, that like 2 days you're missing your family? I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, I'm not doing it right, but then I'm like, thank God. I'm like 2 days. Like 2 days is nothing. I mean, when you like, and I feel like they never have. Like, I would love for them to have like a military family up there,
right.
and just like a spouse up there, and be like, yeah, I don't miss my family at all. There's somebody to be honest, because everybody has to say they're missing everybody, and I know they really do, because some people are very enmeshed. I get that, but like, when I hear that, I'm always like, there's part of me that's always like, what the hell is wrong with you? 2 days, it's $250,000. You know what I mean? You don't. Yeah.
I mean, I was TDY our 20th wedding anniversary a couple of years ago, you know, and at first we were like, oh, sucks, you know, kind of upset about it, and then it was just like, you know, it is what it is. So. Yeah,
I think I mean, you become resilient because anyway, you live life on life's terms, right? And you just got to deal with it, and you learn to deal with it, and I have it that, you know, there was, like I said, used to be a guilt, like, do I not love my wife the same way, or my kids, that I don't miss them?
Yeah.
Maybe no, but you just, I think you just get more resilient to being able to throw what life throws at you. And like, sometimes you're going to miss birthdays. Like, you just hear people talk about that stuff, and like the amount of stress, like, you know, like something that are very regimented, they don't miss anything, like birthdays or things like that. It was like we just had our first like Christmas where my oldest son wasn't here, and you talk to some people, and it was rough, right? But like he still lives here, so I'm it's not like I'm not going to see him, but it's a change. But I'm also like, I don't know, I feel sometimes I'm like, am I just cold-hearted? But like, you tell some people like, oh my gosh, were you like devastated from it? And I'm like, no, a part of me is, but a part of me is like, okay, he's a grown man. He has his job. He's with his girlfriend. I was doing the same thing. You know what I mean? There was a certain point where you know, that line where you grow up and you're not doing that, but like the separation thing is like, I think that's what it makes us, you know.
I had to compartmentalize, you know, if I thought about my family, especially when I was doing a school, you know, where you got to concentrate, but you know, if you're thinking about them constantly, you're not going to do your job well, and you're just going to be a hot mess. So you have to kind of compartmentalize and try to block all that out until you have some free time to do the phone calls and stuff like that. And then, you know, you can't stay focused on it because it'll tear you up.
Yeah. For me, I stayed that way. I stayed detached the whole time, not even when I was deployed, just because it was just, it was easy. That was the easy way. I didn't have to deal with my feelings, because I had a ton of feelings about that. I had a lot of guilt, you know, a lot of shame about, you know, leaving my kids. Like, you know, it makes, I felt bad about it, but you just couldn't say it. And then if you just didn't address it, like, it's going to go away. Right. So you just, you know, like, I would honestly sometimes not take part in things that were going on, like when I was around, because I felt like kind of like I was like, like punishing myself. Right. Or also like prepping myself to be, if I'm not there, I'm not going to enjoy that as much. And I'll just get used to being, and before you know it, you just have isolated yourself from your family, and that doesn't do you any good at all. You know what I mean? So I challenge anybody to just talk about it. Like, before you're starting to leave, talk to your family about it, get it out, call your family every day if you can.
We did, so I did like, for my kids when they were younger, I put together a photo album of pictures of like me and that child, so that when I was gone, they would have their own little photo album to look and see pictures of mom, and, you know, little stuff like that kind of helps. And then of course I bring some kind of present back every time. I mean, TDY, just, hey, bribe for me being gone.
That's a good thing. No, the kids are happy. Like, when are you going TDY again, Mom?
Yeah, I want another gift.
When you're in Texas, can you get me now? So back to dual military. One of the things that that I've seen, or you'll be able to verify it here as well, is that at some point, maybe 90% of the time, someone's career has to take precedence over the other.
Yeah.
So I think remember from Dan, obviously you were active duty, so your career took precedence.
Absolutely.
What is that? I mean, what does that feel like? You know, you have a spouse you love, you see he's doing something or she's doing something that they love, but you know, how did you guys navigate that? Like, hey, I'm going to get what I want. You're not going to get what you want. I mean, that's just layman terms, but how does what process did you guys use to get through that so it was as fair as possible? If it is.
Yeah, I don't know that we really had a process. Again, I think it goes back to we know what each other's going through because we're both in, so that's an advantage. And our marriage wasn't perfect. We certainly had our ups and downs, through the years. But I was the breadwinner. I supplied the insurance and stuff like that. Like basically our family depended on me being in the military, and for me to advance and stuff, that was more, I mean, it wasn't all financial, but that was kind of the priority, is that this is what is supporting the family and it's steady. I don't have to worry about being laid off or anything like that. So it just kind of naturally fell into that. And I also had more opportunities than he did, especially before he went civil affairs. Like they just didn't have the school's opportunities and stuff like that. So, that kind of, he didn't have the same opportunities. But no, I definitely could not have done what I did in my career without him. If he was one of those spouses that doesn't help with housework and, I can leave and he knows how to do everything. So,
Check mark number 2 for the mustache. Yeah. No. He's getting that mustache, I tell you. Yeah, because it's that's an interesting thing you watch, because you've seen it before. With him being in the reserves, it's a little bit different. But
yeah,
it's just, I guess it's when there's obviously the practical part about it, like it's your thing, but there has to be a part still that's like, dang, I wish he could, kind of stinks that we're making Dan's maybe not going to get what he needs military wise because we got to move now. I mean, did you guys talk about that kind of stuff, or is it just kind of like, this is life and this is what's going to happen?
Basically, I don't think we ever really had a big conversation, and it was civilian side too. Like he was averaging I think 5 months before he'd find a job at our new duty station. And then he luckily got into a career field where he could work remotely. And so that was wonderful for him. So it wasn't as disruptive. And I think that helped a lot. And, but I can't say we really had a lot of conversations. It just kind of fell into place, and maybe we should have talked about it, and we wouldn't have gone through many, so many rough patches. But it was just kind of, I think, almost like a silent understanding with us, or it is what it is, and we both realize it. So
now that you're out, he's still in. Do you find yourself supportive? Like, I mean, he just got promoted, right?
Yeah.
So are you excited for him in a different way now, or how's it now being out? Or you just kind of still in the point of I don't want to hear about it, or what's going on now?
I will say it's very fun to go, because he's in the same unit I retired from. It's very fun to go back and be like, hi, I'm Mrs. Skunza, just be a civilian. We went to the dining out a couple months ago, and I got to be a civilian for the first time, and going in to promote him as a civilian, I loved it. But I just lost track of myself. But he does drive me crazy, because now he's the one ranting about Army stuff. And I'm just like, you're triggering me. You need to stop.
My therapist said that.
Yeah. So it's just, it's kind of funny how that's flip-flopped.
But I mean, now it's kind of like your time to give to. I mean, you have a lot of wisdom you can still give, right? You have a little bit more experience, so maybe he's coming back to you because he's an opportunity to help him.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. We've just had such different career paths, and I became a senior NCO and staff way before he did, and so the amount of information I would have where I was at compared to what he would have. It was this interesting dynamic where he might be venting about something, and I'm just like, well, you're not seeing the whole picture, because
Dan's over there like, oh.
No, but it's
listen, dummy, you don't see the big picture. Here's what. No, I'm kidding.
But it's true, because at the level he was at, they just don't, and so That was kind of an interesting dynamic because, I want to be supportive and everything, but, I'm also like, there's this bigger picture and this is why this is happening type thing. So,
So now he's got the big picture. Now you're just supposed to listen. And...
Yeah. He still comes to me for advice though. So, that's the great thing. And I would vent to him about stuff too, just because I knew he understood and he could give me advice and stuff like that, so as tough as it is, it's got advantages too, because, we get it.
So we're going to go back in time.
Okay.
So if you could go back and give your younger self any advice when you first started in the military, what advice would you give young private? So you weren't Skunza then, right?
No, I was Sheehy.
Okay.
My last name Sheehy. I was such a timid, scared private. Anybody that was like E5 or above, I was just terrified of. Which is, wasn't a bad thing for like basic training and AIT and stuff. But, especially being a female, I wish I just would have been a little bit stronger and not quite so timid and scared of anyone, and just kind of stood up for myself a little bit more, not in, a disrespectful way or anything, but just kind of, instead of smiling and nodding my head with stuff, just kind of, put my foot down, create better boundaries and stuff, I guess.
Good answer. I like that.
What's that?
I said I like that. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
So we're going to go back to the couples now.
Okay.
Now you're in the advice mode. We're trying to get advice mode here.
Okay.
So you said you and Dan, it kind of was organic. It just happened. You did throughout that. You probably should have talked about some stuff. So what advice would you give other couples that are dual military, that are, similar to you guys, that are balancing their careers and relationships? Like what kind of advice would you throw out there?
Communicate, talk to each other. There's a lot of resentment that can build up, between the person that's at home while you're TDY and vice versa. It's just, there's a lot of resentment that can build up. And, I think if Dan and I would have maybe talked some certain things out, our rough patches might not have been there and stuff like that. So really just be transparent and communicate, and if you're feeling like, hey, you going TDY is going to stress me out too much, try to work it out and see what, get better support for that spouse, or see if we can postpone or whatever it might be. But, just communicate.
Communication seems to be the key to everything, doesn't it?
It is. Yeah.
And it can be so hard.
Yeah,
to do.
For sure.
So you said you guys had rough patches. How did you guys get through those rough patches after,
Both just very stubborn and refused to give up. But yeah, we did couples counseling and stuff like that, just, but yeah, the bottom line is we just loved each other and just didn't give up and just push. We probably didn't handle some of the rough times the best, we're not perfect. But here we are, married 22 years, and, I don't regret sticking it out at all. It's great.
Good advice. So we talked a little bit about, you kind of keeping it quiet, that you were struggling with mental health, or, mental health issues when you're in the military. Right now with the way the military is, you're probably just, probably the closest of anybody we've had that just retired, if not the closest. What has to change in the Army? What are they not doing that they need to be doing? Or what are they, and then the next part would be like, what are they doing that is working in your opinion? We'll start with like, what do they need to start doing in the military to help deal with the suicide epidemic?
I'll go back to self-care. Like, give your soldiers a chance to decompress. It cannot be 24/7. I get it if you're deployed or you've got a training exercise, that kind of stuff. But when it's not necessary, allow them to have the time and be that person that they can come to. Me being transparent about my struggles, I've had soldiers walk into my office and say, I need help. And I didn't question it. We got them to the ER and they got help, but I think that trust came from me being transparent, and, you might be a leader that's never struggled with this, but you need to learn to be empathetic. And it's a big thing that needs to be addressed. So just like you learn the regulation on how uniforms should be put together, know what the options are for your soldiers and how you can better support them.
Yeah, that's true. There's regulation too, but I think, what you said, I would disagree with you. I feel like way more leaders are struggling with, and they
Probably,
think this is everybody felt this way. I mean, that's one thing I've figured out is, in my journey with my own mental health journey is like all these things that I thought I was the only person feeling this way, I wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a different struggle. It may taste different or look different,
Yeah,
but we're having the same struggles. And I think a lot of it, is like you said, you talk about communication, it ties into being vulnerable, right? When people see that you're vulnerable to talk about it, they'll talk to you. But I think a lot of it to me is when you see that is like, I only am jumping on this because I feel like it's a excuse that some leaders have, like, because they don't want to touch on it. They're not dealing with their own shit.
Yeah.
So they're uncomfortable trying to help you deal with your shit.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was. I was like, I have no time to talk to you about your stuff, because if the best way to do it is just deflect it, because I'm deflecting my own stuff. And then when I did get engaged, I was telling them all the stuff that they should be doing, the regulation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was not doing it myself. Right. So like, I think it's,
that's what helped me be more open and vocal about it, was seeing, I had a battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel, speak in front of the whole battalion about his struggles. And it was because a former soldier from that unit had just committed suicide. But still, you've got your battalion commander, this Lieutenant Colonel, standing up in front of the entire battalion saying, hey, look, I stuck a gun in my mouth one time, and, these are the struggles, and go get help. And so as senior leaders got more comfortable talking about their struggles, it made me more comfortable, and I struggle sometimes as a leader because I wasn't as like firm and scary as what you're supposed to be as a leader. And so there was like always this internal struggle with me of like, I need to be tougher. I need to be. But at the same time, I had soldiers coming into my office saying, I feel like committing suicide. I need help. So I was that person the soldiers could come to and talk to about stuff. So that's what I need to recognize in myself more is, I might not fit that stereotype, but this is what I was able to do for soldiers. And, that's important to me.
Yeah. The whole being tough, that's the culture, right? Being this, and that's just all a mask and a game. You know what I mean? It's like, you look back at it as like, we hear this so much, like it's cool. It's cool to be like, I used to love the same thing. I used to love being like, when people tell me I was an asshole, I pretend like I love that.
Right.
But then the part of you is like, holy shit, like, what have I done to make these people think that? And then you start really thinking about it, like, holy crap, and that became a part of me can be a huge asshole. That I'm okay with that. But it was like when I was just letting that person be what everybody saw, like you said before, how many people, I often think about that, how many people didn't come to me because I really did care. I cared a lot, that's the one thing I was always hiding, is I cared about everything. So I just wonder, how much more of an effective leader I could have been if people would have always felt like they could come to me.
Yeah. It's funny
because I would yell. I'd be like that. If you came to me, I can still be that way. If you come to me, I gotta be an asshole about it. And then all of a sudden I want to help you, like try to be better now. To like somebody comes to me, just, because it doesn't help when you're mad at them or like you make them feel bad. Then,
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's just an interesting dilemma.
When I got my assignment to be the AIT platoon sergeant, people for the 412 were like, "Oh my gosh, Sergeant Skunza, you're gonna have to be meaner. You're gonna have to be, because I just wasn't." And so I got there, and I tried to be this person that I wasn't, and I failed epically. Like all the students hated me, like the instructors didn't, because I was trying to be that, drill sergeant type tough person that you're supposed to be. And then I went to the Master Resilience training course, and they talked about, you have these different personality traits. And if you're trying to be something that you're not, like way down on the list, then you're exhausting yourself. And I was like, holy crap, like that is exactly what I'm doing. And so I went back with a different approach, and it got better.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad. I'm sure that your soldiers, that's a big honor to have them come talk to you. And I mean, I think that's way cooler than to be like, oh, Master Sergeant Skunza was, an asshole. Like, but that's the problem in the military is there's so many people still think that that's the way because it associates with being hardcore, what everybody sees in the movies to like really making a difference with with people. And that's one of the things I've tried to change in myself, is to just be nice.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
be authentic. Cause that's like, so before all the energy, you just said it perfectly. All the energy you put into, to play somebody else, it's exhausting. And then, it just.
Yeah. That was kind of eye-opening for me. I'm glad I did that course when I did.
So now that you're retired, I did ask you about your employment, civilian employment. We didn't talk about that, but what did you put on your bio again about?
Nothing to speak of.
So that's still going. I mean, that's still going. No, we don't have to go back.
I
that's
did
still
the
going
Army for 24 years.
You're like, I'm taking a break. Okay, now. So you're staying home. You got 2 dogs, 2 cats, 7 chickens. So
yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mom. My children are out of the house, but now I just take care of my fur babies. So now
that leads me to the second. I was leading Dan's second question. So you've got the 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 7 chickens. He said, what animal would you like to get next? What animal are you getting next to add to the 2 cats, the 2 dogs, and 7 chickens?
Well, when my husband gets rich and buys me a farm, then I will get goats.
Goats.
Yes, but he has to get richer first.
You get those like goats now with the ones that like you clap and they.
I know. The fainting goats. Yeah.
Our friend has a couple of those, and oh my God, that's a trip to see.
I had a first sergeant when I was a very young E5, and this guy was such a douchebag. But he told me that I reminded him of a fainting ghost because, like, whenever I would get like nervous or scared or whatever, like he's like, you can just see it on your face.
You didn't fall down like
no, but he was like, he told me that I reminded him of
you fall into like the jump or hit it, you just fall.
I should have started doing that after he said that. Every time he talked to me, I should have just like fainted.
Oh my goodness. So what do you do in your retirement now? You you're going to appointments, getting yourself healthy.
Yep.
What kind of hobbies you said you like to yard work and
gardening and plants. Really, and I'm being very lazy. I'll say that first. So my biggest job right now is being lazy, but trying to make our house a home because we're finally like not moving anytime soon. I stopped doing certain things like hanging up curtains and all that kind of stuff because why? You're gonna move, windows aren't the same size, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really want to make our house feel like home. So that's kind of trying to be a homemaker, I guess, right now.
You liking that?
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad.
No, I mean, seriously, I'm sleeping until like 8 and stuff, which is glorious. But I mean, I can do it right now. So
why not? Yeah.
I'm lucky, I have a spouse that works and stuff. So I will get a job eventually at some point, but I'm just, I've been able to fix my mental health and a lot of stuff physically. And so that's just kind of, what I'm focusing on right now.
So you got, you came in 1999, retired last year. The military has changed from then. It continues to change. What advice would you give a young lady just thinking about joining the military? What kind of advice would you give them now? Would you?
What I say a lot is don't join the Army, but I do see a lot of changes. But the biggest thing is stand up for yourself. It doesn't matter what someone's rank is. If they're being inappropriate, you need to stick up for yourself, or talk to someone else that has more rank if you're not comfortable. But stand up for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just I think whenever I talk to people, I just had somebody asked me a question about like one of my biggest impacts in the military, and I always forget about it, but like I was one of the first units where we had women down in the infantry units as medics, and it was the start of what you see today. And when I think back, I'm like, holy cow, that was like, and it went pretty smoothly, right? Because everybody it was going to happen anyways, right? But like everybody talking about it and figuring out, and it's just interesting to see how the military, like you said before, going from like some jobs where women weren't allowed to, now you see them everywhere. So there's, I think I've always said the military is, I would say not join the Army because there's other branches that are better. I mean, they can be better in some aspects. So depending on what you want to do, like watch that. But I think, for me, I see it now. I think it'd be exciting to see, I think there's a place for women in the military. There always has been, but there's a lot more than there was before, and
it's good to see.
Some of them, they're blazing the way for others, so it's pretty cool.
I had a sergeant major that had just come into the unit, and he was all gung-ho about I can't remember what he called it, but he wanted to basically have a female soldier, I'll call it a support group, but I can't remember what he called it. But anyway, so he had me bring all the females in the battalion together and say, hey, got this great sergeant major that wants to, support you female soldiers. And, is this something you'd be interested in? And they were all just like, no, I just want to be a soldier. I don't want to be a female soldier. And I did not want to do that in the first place. And I was so relieved when because that's how I felt, like, this is just stupid. But I couldn't talk to him about it. This is the same guy that realized we needed a sharp rep because we didn't have one. And he starts ticking off all these female names. And I'm like, doesn't have to be a female. It can be a male. And he's like, why would we want a male to do that? I was like, because men get raped and females rape men, and he could not comprehend why a sexual assault representative would not be a female. So there's that generation's leaving. Yeah. Slowly but surely.
Yeah. You always hear those stories, and it's just, it's unfortunate. And I always look back to things I could have changed, but it's just, you just continue to hope, just like in society, the military continues to evolve and it gets more, more comfortable. Cause I always hear, when I was, hear stories about how women were uncomfortable, I always think like, shit, did I do everything I could have done?
Yeah.
Did I, did I say something when I, what I mean? Should I have said something when I didn't, or, like, did somebody not come to me because they, thought I was an asshole? Like those things like that, you kind of go through it, but like, you do your best and you just continue to hope it evolves. And like you said, for us, that is promising to me to hear a bunch of female soldiers saying we just want to be soldiers, because that's what I think anybody wants to be treated normally absolutely. By, regardless of your color, your sex, just that you can do your job. Because that's what I felt like was important then.
Yeah. And I feel like throughout my career, I was always a female soldier. I was never just a soldier. And that really impacted me in a lot of ways. I had a first sergeant that, we'd have, when I was at SWIC, it was a very stressful environment. And the guy instructors would basically be going fisticuffs sometimes, just that stressful environment. And I got into a heated disagreement with a male coworker at some time, and I outranked him. And my first sergeant came up to me and said, don't worry. I explained to him that you're a female and females are emotional, so he's not going to file a complaint against you. And I yelled at him, the first sergeant. I was like, first sergeant, it's not about me being a female. I'm a soldier and a leader. And, it's just super frustrating because they could get in fistfights, but the moment I got upset, and I wasn't physical, I wasn't yelling. I'm emotional because I'm a female. So
I mean, they're different. I think it's interesting. So do you think any of that is you being a female soldier, that was your dilemma? Do you think any of that was your own doing though, or do you think it was just other people as well?
Yeah. Like I said, I wish I would have stood up for myself better. And I started doing that more as I got more rank, but I wish I would have done that from the beginning. Just to, I'm one of those people pleasers, smile and nod your head type things. And I think in some ways I kind of set myself up for some stuff, where if I had just put my foot down more or something, then, people would have backed off.
Yeah, because I was looking at that. I had a female boss, a major at the time, and she was one of the first females to go to West Point, and she was just tough as nails. And I sometimes felt like she was being mean to be mean, and she didn't have to be. You know what I mean? Just to like prove it out. And there's so many times I was just be like, "You're like a stellar officer. Just like don't," because she would sometimes bring the woman thing into it. And you're just like, just forget about that. You're like you run faster than like every major that's on the staff right now. That you're excelling as being a soldier. Just think about that. And I think that some of it is the system, and some of it is, I've definitely seen, some people use that to their advantage,
Yeah.
And that's the hard part when and I hope that culture changes. I was really that would really upset me when you'd see someone like, I remember one time watching a female mechanic having the guys carry her stuff, like all of her toolboxes down to the Bradley, and just have them carry it there and then watch her carry them back. And just, then she would be upset. Like these guys were falling around. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't, who's going to carry their stuff? Like, do you see everybody else carry their stuff? Like, you carry your stuff just like that. Here's what you tell them. No, I will carry my own stuff. And then they'll start, but so it's sometimes I think it's like anything. You're young. Someone's got to give you a different perspective of it. But, I just hope it's gotten better. I mean, I feel like it wasn't, don't get me wrong. I don't think it was, awful when I was in, but anything can always improve.
Yeah. I do see a huge difference now. I do. And these young female soldiers are tough as nails. Like they are, they're keeping up with the males for sure. Yeah. I don't see near as many, I'm on my period, can't take a PT test, excuses and stuff like that. And I've seen that with senior NCOs, but yeah, I really feel good about, we have our gripes about the younger generations and stuff, but I do feel like when it comes to accepting females into the military and sexual harassment and even, mental health stuff, I do see improvements in that. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah. Like I said, every time I hear that, a part of me just gets so sad because, because a lot of times when you hear it, you're just like, you hear some of the stats about, in the military towards females, you hear it and you're like, holy shit, like how did you not see this? Or, it's just, and that part of you is always like, oh man, and I've said before, like to people, like, if you see it, just stop it and then just report it. It's no way to stop it.
I went to a therapist as an E8. I just PCS there. So new therapist. And, he asked, about if I had been sexually harassed. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, wasn't that just par for the course? I never went back again. He's like, you're in the military. You should expect to be sexually harassed. I'm like, oh. And this was a therapist.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, no worries.
But that, it is. When you think about that, there's no other way to put it, but there's just some cringy.
Yeah.
And I don't fault the person because that's just the way it like some people, that's just the way it was for a while. And it was like, and I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like very often I just wish I could have done more, but I mean, it doesn't help to think that way.
Yeah.
I know that when the opportunity presented myself to do what I needed to do, I did what I was supposed to do. And that's all you can.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. Not off the top of my head right now. I don't know.
This is your time. I mean, you thought we'd only go an hour. We're already 2 hours in. Look at that. It went quick. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, it did. No, not necessarily.
It's a wrap?
Yeah, maybe. Unless you got something else.
Let's see if I got another question here. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, Dan was supposed to give me a hard question. He gave you the easy ones.
I know.
So now that you're not rich, though, what animal can you get now, though? Now that you're not independently rich, what are you going to add to the?
I keep wanting to get another cat, but I keep getting told no. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a service dog, and then he'll have to let me have it because it's medically necessary.
Whoa. I think he's making a move on me. I just given to the cat, Dan. Given to the cat before that happens. But no, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for your 24 years of service. I want to thank you for the dual military, all the dealing with all that, being a mom and a soldier, just being who you are. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
It's been an honor, and I'm glad to hear you. I will go to the VA. That's another shot you took in there. I won't forget about the mustache though. So
hey, you let me know when it's done, and
I'll let you know. Give you some good advice. I'll go to the VA if you the card I gave you, if you scan it and fill out the application and submit.
I'll do that on the drive home.
Ooh, I can't do okay. If you do that, I get okay. Let me think about my schedule and I'll figure out. I'll commit to that. You submit and I'll commit. You guys got me. This is like teaming up. So dang it, how did I talk myself into that? It's all right though. So tonight we're gonna get to the part of the podcast that It's always sad for me. Tonight, we're going to honor a service member who took their life. Tonight, we're going to honor U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Richard L. Kellogg, 35 years old. Rick was born on June 9th, 1974 in Canton, Ohio. Rick took his life on April 4th, 2010 in Flagstaff, Arizona. After graduating high school, Rick joined the United States Army and served on active duty for 4 years. After leaving active duty, Rick continued to service in the National Guard. Rick graduated from Kent University in 2004 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. After college, Rick was hired by the Flagstaff Police Department in Flagstaff, Arizona. Upon completion of the police academy, Rick was deployed as a military police officer to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Rick returned and served the community of Flagstaff as a patrol officer, field training officer, and motor officer. Rick was a decorated soldier and police officer, receiving numerous awards and decorations. Rick was selfless in his life, and he was everyone's best friend. Rick had a very contagious smile and was always great with children. Rick's hobbies included running, riding his motorcycle, and enjoying time with his friends. Rick is survived by his mother, Deanna, brothers Robert and Ryan, sister Rebecca, his large police department family, and numerous other relatives and families. And please, if you or someone you know is in crisis and might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 988, or you can dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. So that concludes episode 70. Again, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for letting us have Dan about a year ago.
Yep.
We will see everyone in a couple weeks, and have a great night.
All right. Thank you.